Oh, hello. I'm TobbaTee, and this is the story of how I made this. Sound like this. So here we are in Reaper. That's the DAW I'm using for my recordings. The two tracks here are my two bass drums. So I do have two bass drums and one mic inside of each bass drum. So what I do here is to combine these two into a bus, which gives me a summoned signal for those two, and then I can do the processing on both of them, and then doing the final leveling on the signal chain here on the bus. And speaking of leveling, the one plugin that I'm using in this case, the drum leveler from Melda Production. Very useful one because it does gate and it does compression and it does a whole range of other things as well. So it's really good, the one-stop shop for getting a good and levelized drum sound as quickly as possible. So what I did was to load up a preset, clicking here and then simply select bass drum. And then you'll notice that the basic one has a smaller mix of dry and wet, or depth as Melda Production often calls it in their plugins. And I'll turn this way up so that we get only the processed signal coming through. This could be used to dial that down and to get a less processed sound depending on what sound you are after. Another useful thing here is the threshold. And I'll show you what I mean with this, because this is kind of replicating a gate. So if we enable this out of the box, just with increasing more depth on the preset for bass drum, we get this. So that's good. At the very end there, you probably noticed there was a snare hit coming through. You could see it here in the graph. So it detected a signal that came over the threshold, and that was leveled as per the settings here. And it's represented in this red dot. So we definitely want to increase the threshold to only get the bass drum hits with the good margin. So this should give us, all the bass drum hits should be above this level. And then the velocity line here is just saying where are we going to be. So you can see here, these are the different levels here. And then these are the final ones. So with these settings, let's play it again and see if this one is picked up. There was nothing came through, so that sounded pretty good to me. Moving on, and what I often do here is carve out a bit of space in the 500 range, specifically for low-end sources like bass drums and floor toms, because there's so much muddy stuff happening there that it benefits the complete mix if your sources do have a little bit of a dip here in the 500 range. So let's listen to it without. And now back on. To my ear, that clears it up. To your ear, I don't know, comment below and tell me if I should put it on or off, or what would you do? This video is definitely not a instruction to how you should do it. It's just giving you an insight to how I do it. So unfortunately, I'm not going to go into details about attack, compression ratio, release and stuff like that, because I got this plugin that just does everything for me. So moving on, onwards and upwards. So this is basically processing at the very drum bus, and this doesn't really make sense unless you hear all of the full mix. But right now I'm just focusing on the bass drums. First one off, we do have an equalizer. Again, just cleaning up a bit of the lower end spectrum that is usually overrepresented in my floor toms and my bass drums and so on. So let's enable it on. Take it off. On. Off. You could say that I might be taking away a lot of low end, but when I get the full mix back here, it just gives it a bit more room to breathe, definitely to my ears. But obviously everyone's ears are slightly different tuned. So if you're hearing something else, let me know. So then the next one here is the reverb, which again also makes a lot more sense when I got the full mix. It's just to give the impression that the drums you're hearing are actually being recorded in that room you are seeing, which they are, but when the microphones are so close to the sources, you don't necessarily get that roomy sound. So this is just sort of a way to replicate that. And then back to the dry signal. So the final one here is the M Ultra Maximizer, and this is just giving me a bit more loudness without clipping, because I've set it to plus 1.54 on input and then minus 0.1 on the output. So it should not go above 0 decibels, which is a good thing. So with this one on, we get the following. Without. So basically giving this a bit more level while also making sure that there's nothing that's going to clip the signal. So the final one is the master bus, and what I do have here is yet another Ultra Maximizer, but this one is just a clip preventer. So it's a pretty standard one without any gain to the input, and again minus 0.1 to the output, making sure that there's nothing coming up the clip level. And the final one here is a loudness analyzer, just giving me the integrated loudness, which is the most useful one for doing stuff on YouTube, for example, because they aim for, I think it's minus 14. So if you do put anything else up there, which is above or below, YouTube will raise or lower those levels. So definitely useful. You can see when I'm hitting play now, these levels are being analyzed. But obviously this will make more sense when I have the complete mix. And that was it. So if you enjoyed this, do let me know in the comments below, and I'll maybe try to get around and do more studio stories and whatnot. Or else, probably just keep hitting the drums and don't say a word.